Well, hello, everyone, and thank you for joining today's broadcast and webinar on moving between clouds and selecting the right CCaaS for our post-pandemic reality. Just to start off, setting a little bit of foundation, I think we can all agree, I think in the midst of 2020, with the COVID-induced cloud migrations, I think enterprises quickly picked a solution and signed a contract, the first contract that made sense for them. And now many of those contracts have or are about to expire, which is bringing the opportunity to move to a new contact center as a service. And if you're considering a cloud to cloud migration, I think you're in good company today. 3 out of those 5 enterprises plan to evaluate or actively migrate from one contact center platform to another in 2024. And in this webinar, we'll help you provide an overview of those things to consider when evaluating a CCaaS platform. So that you can make an informed decision that is going to best fit your business needs. All right, with that quick introduction, I'd like to say hello and welcome to today's webcast, selecting the right CCaaS for our post-pandemic reality. This webcast is actually brought to you by Bandwidth. My name is Elijah Robertson, and I'll be the host of this webcast. A little bit about myself. I'm the Director of Product Management at Bandwidth, and I specialize in roadmaps for businesses and driving and executing product vision. In addition, I also work on our enterprise market offer as well, where I focus on product strategy, managing partners, and multi-platform technical integrations. But with that, that's enough about me. I'd like to turn it over to my colleague and co-speaker today, Terry Stockings, to introduce himself.
Hello, everybody. As mentioned, my name is Terry Stocking. I'm a contact center and AI specialist here at Bandwidth. I have about 35 years of experience in telecom and about 20 years of experience in the contact center. And I help support anything technically related when it comes to discussions around contact centers and our offerings in the telecom space. I'll hand it back over to you, Elijah.
All right, perfect. Thanks, Terry. So again, we'd like to thank you for joining our webcast today. And we're looking forward to kind of guiding you all through the selection of your CCaaS platform. For today, we'll cover a few important topics, 3 specifically. One is, what should you look for when looking for a CCaaS solution? Who are the top CCaaS platforms today in the market? And then also questions to ask yourself and your vendors to help make the right decision. And again, we are thrilled to be your guides through this essential decision-making process. So let's dive in. I think as many of you know, or may not know, Bandwidth actually powers all of the leading platforms in the UCaaS and CCaaS ecosystem. We actually power them with reliability and a lot of innovation. We have a commitment, and this actually has positioned us as a sole provider, providing 100% of Gartner's Magic Quadrant in this space. Through collaborative partnerships with our customers, we've garnered an understanding of the intricacies that matter most to enterprises around the globe. And then by co-creating alongside these industry leaders, we actually gained valuable insights into their needs and pain points. And thinking through the realm of CCaaS, our journey has actually highlighted the significance of voice communication. And despite a rise of diverse communication channels, voice actually still remains a cornerstone for enterprises seeking to build a solid connection with their customers. But Bandwidth does have a track record of empowering the market's leading players in the industry, which underscores our dedication to delivering solutions that transcend expectations. We do feel that with Bandwidth at your side, you do gain access to not only some cutting edge technology, but also a wealth of knowledge and expertise, which is tailored to meet the demands of today's rapidly changing business landscape. All right, so this is my best attempt to take us back down memory lane to the year of 2020. I think we all know in the year 2020, there was a huge impact made across the globe with COVID-19. And at this time, cloud technology was already on the rise, but it was steadily making its mark, which had dated all the way back to the 2000s. But it wasn't until I think the world, was hit with unexpected and unprecedented challenge of COVID-19 that cloud adoption actually skyrocketed at that time. Many of these businesses were forced to adapt to remote work practicality overnight, some familiar grounds and some unfamiliar grounds. And the demand of cloud solutions actually surged like never before. It was actually the catapult that got us to really cloud solutions where it is today. This sudden shift actually propelled cloud adoptions to extremely new heights, and especially in the realm of the contact center as a service space, because a lot of these organizations were actually trying to continue to be able to support their customers. So like myself, or like you may be asking yourself, how big was this actual surge that you're speaking on? So I love data, so let's dig into a little bit of the data, right? So end user spending on UCaaS licenses and services actually went from 2.9 billion in 2018, and it jumped up to 8.9 billion in 2021. Right, so that's almost tripling its size in just a few short years. So when we're talking about billions, that's a really big leap. But in COVID, in the COVID-induced cloud migration, I guess we can call that a frenzy, enterprises did hurry to select solutions and just ink contracts, right, just to keep their businesses and customers afloat. But now, as those contracts are actually approaching expiration, and even some of them have already expired, it's now time to reassess and explore the possibility of transitioning to a new and different, or possibly new and different CCaaS solution. So if you find yourself in that boat, I would say to you, do not worry, you're not alone. There are a number of organizations that are looking to do the same thing you are right now, whether that's either move to a new CCaaS or evaluate a new CCaaS. And I think with the right guidance and insights, navigating that transition can be smooth, moving into a brighter and more optimized future for your contact center operations. Okay, I think we set the stage, in terms of what we're going to talk about today. And we've talked a little bit about bandwidth. We actually talked a little bit about history, and we took a trip down memory lane. We went from the 2000s through 2020. And I think now we all understand the significance of the transition. So I do want to dive a little bit more into your CCaaS options. But much before we get there and the specific options that's out there in the market, it is important to know, much like the initial migration to the cloud, navigating different CCaaS platforms, it can feel like a very complicated and a daunting task. But I think this is where Terry and I want to come in and help ease that thought for you and guide you through the actual process. And hopefully by the end of this, it doesn't feel as daunting as some of you may have felt pre-webcast today. And our goal for today is actually equip you with an overview of some of the top CCaaS platforms that are available today. And we do plan to provide you with a comprehensive understanding of that, which should help and empower you to make an informed decision that aligns seamlessly with the needs and goals of your organization and business when making that choice. Many of us do initially believe that migrating to the cloud would be an ultimate solution. But the actual reality is there's still a significant difference in the experiences offered by the different vendors. We would think they would be aligned today, but that's just not the case. Again, I'm a metrics person in data, so I'll say this: 55.9% of actual technology leaders report challenges in migrating their tech stacks today. Even after migrating to the cloud. So there's still some technical leaders that are having trouble there. And I think what that tells us is finding the right CCaaS platform is critical for success for these organizations. We've also found that 60.2% of those enterprises are planning to evaluate or actually migrate from one contact center platform to another in this year in 2024. So I think this highlights the growing recognition among organizations that the right CCaaS solution can truly make or break customer service and operations satisfaction. So as we move through the journey together with this and exploring those CCaaS options, I do want you to keep in mind, once again, you're not alone, and that's where me and Terry are here to help you understand what those options are. I think we'll help navigate through those complexities, and hopefully you can find the right fit for your organization today. All right, so there are a couple things to consider when evaluating a CCaaS vendor. So there are 4 buckets that we feel like are extremely important. But before we get there, I think it's important for us to help you understand why we feel like we're in a really good place to help you understand this and maybe talk a little bit about why does bandwidth actually fit in the seat where we can actually speak to you today and help you understand what options are out there. So bandwidth has helped a number of organizations over the years. A lot of those challenges that we've helped organizations with, they do stem from the ability to scale due to increased call volumes, global expansion, and the lack of CCaaS industry knowledge. And we've done this over the last 20 years. With that 20 years of experience, we've actually found that those 4 key bucket areas that we suggest organizations consider is call quality and reliability, interoperability, customer and agent satisfaction. In order to accomplish those 3 buckets, in order to do those things, you're going to need control, whether that's the ability to give up control or the lack thereof, or wanting to give up control, but control is a big piece of what you should consider when evaluating these vendors. All right, so first we'll start and take a look at call quality and reliability, and we'll dig in deep there. It's important to know that voice still does remain a critical channel for the majority of companies out there in today's market and the consumers as well. So diving a little bit into those aspects of call quality and reliability is extremely important. So thinking of what the essence of what's happening, thinking of the essence of what's happening in today's market, there is an upward trend in customers choosing to interact with businesses across multiple channels. So that's actually happening, and customers are wanting more of organizations to come to them versus customers going to the organization to determine how they're communicating with them. So 39% of those customers are interacting in those channels that actually start with something other than voice. And then 27% actually go to a completely resolved issue without actually using voice, right? So that shows that there is movement today where there can be different avenues in terms of how customers are actually getting their issues resolved. From supporting our point earlier, that actually means that it's an essential part of a customer communication where voice is still required in 73% of those interactions to actually solve or resolve an issue today. And I think you'll get the same message if you talk to customers in the market as well. There's actually, 2 out of 3 customers that actually find it unacceptable and will not choose to do business with a company that doesn't have an actual phone number to call into for support. So people actually feel like they need a phone number to call into, and maybe knowing that they have a phone number, they still may choose other channels, but it's imperative that a phone number for voice is still available to customers to call in for help. So with voice being such an important part of the contact center, I think it's, there's no surprise that call quality and reliability is the #1 challenge keeping IT leaders up at night. So they're really still trying to figure out how to solve that problem. All right, so now let's take a look at our second area to consider, which is customer and agent satisfaction. All right, so if we want to talk about the heartbeat of any successful contact center, customer agent satisfaction, I think there's no secret that when your agents are happy, your customers tend to be happy too. And that's a huge part, right? So it's not just customer satisfaction, but it's also agent satisfaction as well. But when you think about that, what are the top priorities for IT leaders in 24? And how do they actually tie this into the equation itself? So AI and machine learning implementation has been huge, and it's fast growing as well. You take that, and along with enhancing customer and agent experiences, those are taking a real spotlight today in how to mesh those worlds together. I think it's all about leveraging technology to streamline operations and evaluate the customer journey. And cloud-based contact centers are actually paving the way, for a lot of agent and customer friendly tools. If you think about tools like Agent Assist to analytics and conversational AI, it is making a noticeable difference. We actually see that 65% of consumers actually report a feeling that customer service is on the upswing, which is when you hear that, that's a win-win for everyone involved. But I will also say, let's not fall for AI too fast without learning more about AI itself. While AI does hold an immense promise, I think it's still a developing field, and there's still a lot more to be learned, not just by the consumer, but also the organizations as well, in terms of what those tools are and how do those tools serve internal for their organization, but also for their consumers. There's a lot of providers constantly emerging innovative technologies With that, there's a world of opportunity, right? It's been waiting to be explored. But again, there's a lot of learning to be made there still in the AI realm. And I think that's why customers and agent satisfaction is actually emerging as a key driver for new CCaaS adoption. I think it actually overshadows a bit of interoperability, which is always huge, and we'll get to that next. Well, and then at the end of the day, I think it's not just about implementing the latest technology. It's also about leveraging that technology to create meaningful connections and exceptional experiences for both the consumer and your team as well. All right, we mentioned interoperability, so this is the third bucket, and what's extremely important. I would say if call quality and resiliency is the biggest challenge to IT leaders, I think we see interoperability as actually the biggest opportunity for IT leaders. So what we have found, according to Gartner, so there is no single best player across CCaaS or UCaaS in AI today, right? There's kind of leaders in each of those buckets. There are some platforms that are moving in the direction, such as Cisco, RingCentral, and Zoom, but I don't think any of those platforms have established themselves as leaders in these quadrants across the board. I think that's driving enterprises who want a best-in-class solution to look across various providers and stitch together third-party tools to build their ideal customer journeys through the contact center. This also is driving employee engagement as well. On average, contact centers use between 4 and 7 third-party tools today, which can be difficult to maintain. And then 78% of our IT leaders that we've surveyed found they were very transparent to us and said that managing the enterprise's communication stack is very challenging. As you know, 4 to 7 tools can be tough to manage on a daily basis. And I think it's only going to get more difficult, right, as IT advances and customer requirements become a bit more tougher to really reach customer satisfaction. One example that I want to share is that contact centers actually do expect to introduce 3 or more tools into their contact center within the next 3 years, which is a lot. If you think about the 4 to 7 already today, add another, 3 more tools, you're looking at almost 10 tools to manage for an IT leader. So if you take a look at the chart that's on screen now, I think you'll notice in the right bar, the bar chart that's on the right, you can see that AI is a huge focus area for these tools, which does align AI and machine learning implementation, which is a big priority for IT leaders today to really understand what that looks like for their organizations. If CCaaS solutions, keep this in mind. If CCaaS solutions doesn't integrate well with any of your existing solutions and network infrastructure, that can adversely affect the performance of those solutions as well. So while you may have, choosing your existing contact center for the provided tools and functionality included in that platform, many enterprises are finding themselves changing providers due to feeling trapped into that current solution today. And it's causing them the inability to actually choose the third-party tools they want. So keep that in mind, interoperability, and know that, a key takeaway here is that in the next 3 years, they're looking at IT leaders almost managing 10 different tools for the contact center. All right, so finally, what organizations want to have with their IT solutions is control. They also want to have it, but they also don't want to give it up either, right? And I think you're going to need control in order to really execute on the previous 3 buckets that we talked about as well. So let's dive into what that actually means. So some organizations, they are using hybrid deployments due to many limitations, but I think the biggest reason today is control itself. The majority of those businesses have migrated their contact center somewhat to the cloud, but only 28% of enterprises have adopted a full cloud contact center. And control is the cornerstone that can help unlock call quality, customer and agent experience, and interoperability, which is why we say control it brings all 4 of those together. Many IT leaders are connected to old school telephony, let's just be honest. And yes, they do face obstacles of moving to the cloud, such as how much control can they give up based on, regulatory impacts as an example. This doesn't have an impact. Let's say this doesn't have an impact on control, but You have to think about how does it impact call quality, customer satisfaction, and agent experience, and does it change your interoperability at all for you? So there's a couple things to think about when it comes to control from each of those ends. So these are really good considerations and can cause hesitation for change for sure. There's a lot to juggle, but I think just making sure you educate yourself on what's out there and what your organization is looking for and needs. Can make it a lot less of a stressful situation. So you may be thinking to yourself, how do you swing control back to yourself after going to the cloud? I think your answer there is ensure that you're choosing a trustworthy vendor for your BYOC and CCaaS solutions, whether that's CCaaS or UCaaS. I think you need to know that your partner has your back and sets you up for success through providing you with control by providing you with the ability to do a number of things, right? Whether that's remotely managing your system, knowing your features and functionality very well of that system, providing you with direct support. I think that providing you with that direct support also includes reporting to help you unlock your operational insights as well. So with that, you won't look in isolation. Your BYOC vendor should make sure that you never feel in isolation when you're choosing them. They should be with you every step of the way as you're building out your move to the cloud. With that, that wraps up our last bucket here of control. And now that we've covered those essentials of evaluating your CCaaS vendor, I'd like to shift our focus over to understanding the landscape from another angle. I'm going to turn the floor over to Terry Stocking. He's actually going to guide us through the Gartner Magic Quadrant for CCaaS, where he will explain the 4 quadrants. He'll highlight the top leaders, as well as valuable insights into navigating the CCaaS vendor landscape. And with that, Terry, I'll hand it over to you. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Elijah. As Elijah mentioned, there are 4 important factors to consider when evaluating contact center as a service vendors. So call quality and reliability, customer and agent satisfaction, interoperability, and control. In my experience, control gets the most attention, especially if you're moving from on-premise to the cloud. Now, this is because IT and contact center departments want to ensure when they move to the cloud, they have the same level of control they have on their premise. By the way, I have similar conversations about unified communications, just as I do with the contact center. I also get the question, how do you go about evaluating contact center and unified communication vendors? My response is that you need to understand your requirements, and that helps to narrow down the search. Each company has different requirements, and therefore you're going to be looking and evaluating vendors differently. So it's not a one-size-fits-all. The follow-on question is typically, do you have any recommendations for CCaaS or UCaaS vendor? And that's where I recommend looking at analyst views, kind of more independent views on the particular marketplace, whether it be the contact center or unified communications center marketplace. One of the more popular reports is Gartner's Magic Quadrant, which is shown here. And as you can see in this chart, the leaders are in the upper right-hand corner. And that's a good place to start a lot of times, but it's not always the best fit. The leaders tend to be a little bit more expensive, but they have all the bells and whistles. Depending upon what functionality you need, though, it might be that the challengers, visionaries, or niche players might be a better fit for your organization. So you really need to analyze what's the different functionality that you really need within your organization. Do we focus a lot on outbound or inbound, or maybe there's an omni-channel experience that you need to have. Maybe employee engagement is paramount in your organization. So depending upon kind of what these different factors are, you can go evaluate based on those factors, the various different players. Also, people like Gartner, and they're not the only ones, but have detailed analysis for each of these vendors. They will go through the pros and the cons and kind of tell you, here's some good things they've got and you might want to look for. And that'll also help you narrow down kind of the list of folks that you're looking at from a vendor perspective and narrow in on what might be best for your organization. Next slide, please, Elijah. Another aspect to consider is how many vendors you've got. Most folks try to reduce that down because, as Elijah mentioned, typically there are many vendors in any deployment, and the more you can reduce it down, the easier it's going to be for your own contact center and IT department to manage the environment. With that in mind, you can see in the chart here, we've highlighted in purple the players that both do UCaaS and CCaaS. Because a lot of the times what I hear is, we want to try to consolidate our UCaaS and CCaaS providers. And my experience is that in some cases you can do that, in others you can't. Let me give you a few examples. So this shows the CCaaS environment, so the contact center environment, and those that are also have a UCaaS offering. Many times the UCaaS offering, even though it might look similar, is actually a completely different environment. And the reason why is they specialize in contact center feature-rich functionality. And to kind of make something that's a UCaaS, which might be not focused on the contact center, it's actually a different set of functionality. And thus, you can't typically, in one platform, get the best of both worlds. You typically have to have both sides. So especially if you're a larger contact center, or even UCaaS environment, you'll typically have two different vendors, one for the UCaaS side and one for the CCaaS side. And sometimes I've seen some customers take UCaaS vendors and try to add simple functionality to that for contact centers, such as just adding in call queues or auto attendance. And I've seen them be successful at it, but that's typically much smaller organizations that don't have a very large contact center. Otherwise, they definitely still tend to be separate in two separate deployments. So one way that you can kind of look at how you merge the two together is looking at bring your own carrier. So next slide, Elijah. We talked about bring your own carrier a little bit, but bring your own carrier allows you to get a view into both your UCaaS and CCaaS, so unified communications and contact center environments. What this allows you to do is manage things through a single pane of glass, through one portal, through one set of analytics tools for the carrier side. And that helps to reduce a lot of the back and forth that goes on between the two platforms. It also makes migration a lot simpler. So for instance, if you need to migrate from one platform to another platform, whether it be CCaaS to CCaaS, UCaaS to UCaaS, or even moving from things like on-prem to a cloud-based platform, bring your own carrier can really help out with that. And so if you've got a bring your own carrier provider that has the ability to interconnect with both your CCaaS and UCaaS, that provides you a lot of flexibility. Fortunately, with Bandwidth, we have that capability. We support interoperability with all of the vendors in the Magic Quadrant for both the contact center, so CCaaS and UCaaS. So this allows you to be able to have a foot into potentially both worlds and get a more unified view when looking at flexibility on how to move traffic around and manage your environment. Next slide, please, Elijah. So just kind of in conclusion here, BYOC partners, I think, are an important part of your contact center and, for that matter, unified communications environments. It can do things like boost your call quality through the 5x toll-free redundancy within the US that, for instance, Bandwidth has. Also, it is the means to be able to get to potentially third-party tools for things like customer satisfaction and agent engagement. This allows you to get to extra functionality within that same BYOC environment. And then lastly, it's all about being able to have the flexibility to move your traffic around and manage your traffic through a single lens. And that's that unmatched control, which is the premium part of bring your own carrier. With that in mind, I'll hand it back over to Elijah to wrap things up.
All right. Well, thanks, Terry. Definitely appreciate that. Great insight there. So I think today we went over a lot of great information for you all, but let's pause here and we'll go over 4 key questions to ask yourself in the process. First question is, are you confident in your disaster recovery scenarios today? And do you want control over telephony and migrations, ensuring robust disaster recovery plans? Secondly, does your current platform enable you to deliver support services that delight your customers and avoid agent burnout? And understanding what are those third-party tools needed to enhance customer satisfaction and agent engagement? Do you have access to all communication channels and third-party tools for an ideal customer experience? And with that, will you have a seamless integration with those third-party tools as well? And finally, have you conducted a root cause analysis to determine if you need a new CCaaS or control? These are really important questions to ask yourself to help set a really solid foundation for your CCaaS vendor journey. I think, as we conclude the webinar today, I think, we've explored some vital considerations in choosing that CCaaS platform. And I think we gained some valuable insights into leveraging BYOC partners and transformative contact center experiences with that as well. With that, I will move over to the Q&A portion of our webinar today. All right, I think we got a couple of questions here. Let's see, what are questions here? All right, so question 1 is, how does BYOC enable a more reliable service when using cloud-based CCaaS platforms? I think, and I'll jump in there, and Terry, feel free to add any context in there as well. I think BYOC, enhances the reliability of, cloud contact center as a service platform. So I think they do allow organizations to leverage, their existing trusted carrier relationships and infrastructure. And this actually ensures, a really consistent and high quality voice service, and helps also better manage redundancy and failover in the process as well. I think BYOC also offers flexibility and, like we said earlier, in carrier choice. As you can select your own carrier for that reliability, it also helps you with geographic coverage as well. So you're not trapped in. You can vet and see who actually has the most coverage out there that fits your business needs. And keeping in mind that you do want to reduce, downtime, and it can also help with, overall service stability as well. I think, and finally, I'll wrap up here with this question. It says allows for a quicker problem resolution. As those organizations work directly with carriers they're actually familiar with, so they have a relationship already there. So it can help there and help speed up those issues and getting to a resolution for that. So I think that's it. Did you have anything else you wanted to add to that, Terry?
Nope, I think that wraps it up.
Cool. All right, I think we have two more questions here in the chat. Next up is, I'm actually concerned about the migration process from on-premise to the cloud, and how can BYOC help with the migration process? Yeah, it's a great question. So BYOC actually significantly can ease the migration process very much from on-prem to the cloud. And I think that's simply by allowing organizations to retain their existing carrier service and their numbers as well. So you may hear me repeat that, but keeping your existing carrier service is extremely important in BYOC. And this also helps to reduce, just disruption during the actual transition process. So as you're transitioning, you can feel confident that you won't have disruption to your customer experiences as well. And also, you can actually phase the migration in gradually as well. You can move specific parts of your contact center to the cloud while still using your handy and trusted on-prem carriers as well. Hybrid approaches also allows for testing and adjustments without affecting service quality. And also maintains, again, that existing carrier contract. So you don't actually have to go find a new contract, which can be a long vetting process. As you're finding a new carrier for CCaaS, you don't have to go and find a new carrier as well, having two different vendor processes going at the same time. And finally, it actually simplifies porting numbers and also ensures that compliance and regulatory requirements are met, which makes the migration, overall much smoother and manageable. All right. I think looks like one more. Says, can you give me an example of how BYOC will give me more control with my cloud CCaaS service? All right, sure. So let me expand a little bit on the earlier section around control. Keep in mind, the key points that we discussed earlier, right? So BYOC will also provide you, in addition to that, control over that cloud and CCaaS service by allowing you to choose and manage your own telecommunications carrier, which you spoke about a little bit in the previous question. But I'll give you a quick example. If you experience issues with call quality or service reliability, you have flexibility to switch those carriers without changing your CCaaS platform. So you can kind of piece these, you can move in and out of these different platforms without having to change everything all at once. And then you can also negotiate those carrier contracts as well, just so they can meet your specific business needs a lot better. If you think about those contracts, you can negotiate better rates, improve SLAs, or even enhance your geographic coverage at the same time. I think this level of control will allow you to, tailor your communication service to ensure that it aligns closely with your organizational requirements and strategic goals, which will, at the end, deliver a more customized and optimized contact center solution overall. All right, so those are those 3 questions there. That's all we currently have in the chat today. If there's no other questions, I think that'll end our webcast for the day. And I'd like to thank everyone for joining us today, and definitely look forward to having an opportunity to speak with you guys and learn about your journey down the road.